Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for joining our final episode, Building Value. So this one I've been really looking forward to. So John told me a bit about it a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is going to fit in a lot with the signage industry and our customers and what people are thinking and asking. And John just gave me a bit of a sneak peek about what to expect for this next hour. So I think people are going to get a lot of value out of this episode for sure. So how it works, we all know how this Zoom stuff works now, don't we? So if you have any questions, please feel free to just use the Q&A button down the bottom. You just type in there and I'll make sure everything gets answered. Or if you'd like to show your lovely faces and let us hear your voice, we can unmute you and you can ask John a direct question like that too as we go. So it's so look, I'm Steve. I'm the sales and marketing manager for Computer Leader. But yeah, that's enough about me. So I'll hand it over to you, John, to take the team through what we have for the next 45 to an hour.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve. Good morning, all. Thank you for attending. This one, and I've got a lot of favourites, I've got to admit that, but this one, adding value to your business, I think it's a very important one. More importantly than anything else, I believe you've really got to make it fun. So let's get it underway. I like to start with a real definition of what value means. And so these are straight out of the dictionary, but I don't have to read them out to you verbatim, but obviously it's something of importance or worth, or it's a material value of something, or something compared to the price that you pay for it is perceived as value. It's also regarded as principles for one's behaviour or a judgment of what's important in your life. And for the mathematical of us inclined, it's the numerical amount denoted by an algebraic term. But I personally like Warren Buffett, his quote. Warren Buffett, for those who aren't aware, he owns Berkshire Hathaway, I think it is. And his great quote that I like is, price is what you pay, but value is what you get. And it's often referred to, and you can look at that comparison across the line. You know, if you buy cheap vinyl, we'll expect it to give you cheap performance. If you buy better quality vinyl, and that goes to some, whether it's machines or motor cars or whatever, but it's a good quote. I'm a bit of a fan of quotes, and I refer to a couple of them, and my favourite ones are Warren Buffett's and usually Picasso's, who I refer to later. So let's move on. So when you look at value, there's a terrific amount. This is one of those stock images that you can have a look at it. But if you look at the words in it, and you can get a download of this, of course, it's going to be on the NZSDA website anyway, but you could do a screenshot or whatever. But there's a lot involved in the value: accountability, direction, hope is one I like, teamwork, achievement, principles, targets, all sorts of things that you can read into value. But what I've done is put together 10 of my favourites within the value set, and we'll talk about them in the next slide. So how can we add value to your business? So I've come up with 10. You'll see number 3 has got a little orange asterisk after it, and they're the ones that we'll deal with in detail in a moment. So how you add value? Well, first of all, build an amazing business, not just a hobby or a personal ego trip. And I don't mean that in any derogative sense. If that's what you want to do and that's valued for you, it's just as important to leave it as that is, as a personal ego trip. But I'm saying if you're going to build a business, and if you look up the definition of business, it's something that you build and it usually is employing. I'm probably been a bit twisted in a different direction in the last few weeks because we've been doing a survey here in Australia, and it's showing what I believe most of us know is that our industry is predominantly made up of smaller shops. So ego is very driven because as creative professionals, we get very attached to the things that we make. So it's something I think people know well. So I didn't choose that as one of the ones I drilled down on. I'm going to drill down on 5 as we go. Second one, investing strategically in business. I've used the word strategically because there's an important value set in itself. Sometimes you haven't got the money to buy a brand new motor vehicle, or you might choose to buy something of a lesser value because you've got a particular use for it. So that's according to your own budgets. Again, I don't drill down on that, so we'll go on to the next one. which is increasing, can we go back one? That's increasing how your customers' perceptions. To me, this is one of the key fundamentals of adding real value to your business. I won't say any more than that because we drill down on that with quite some information later on. Next one. Respect and understanding of the business's legal and intrinsic value. And by that, this is one of the ones we drill down on. So I'll talk on it a great deal later, but it's actually really seeing your business as its own legal entity and you're employed by that business. So I'll cover that in great detail. One that relates back to our first of these three webinars is increasing your team's knowledge and value. I always, skills, I mean, I always feel that that's really incredibly important. And I always like to reinforce the fact that the owner of the business is a part of the team. Often they feel isolated if they've got a larger company, but the team, it's not anybody else but the whole group of people. Investing in growth and sustainability is one I cover, so I won't drill down in that. Number 7 is the organisational structures and process worthy of a third-party investment. A lesson I learned in the 90s was I got consultants into our company. We had about 20 odd staff at the time. And we had a company in that basically pulled the business apart, spoke to our staff, our management, our contractors, our customers, our suppliers, and we literally reorganised the company after that. And not long after that, we put in quality assurance to 9002 for quality standards. But we started to look at the business as if it was its complete separate own legal entity, because if some misadventure happened to me, or someone else, car accident, you name it, if the business has got a structure like an organisational chart, job descriptions, organisation tells you where you are in the company, job description tells you what you're supposed to do, and work instructions give you the tools to be able to do it. If you're going to sell your business at some point, you want to get the best value for it. And we talk about that in the slide. I haven't highlighted this one, but I've got a couple of articles I've written on it for anyone that's interested. Let us know, and I'll add those to the ones that we're going to normally supply. The last couple, under promise, over deliver. I say that because I think that's where you can have a real lot of fun, and hopefully I'll prove that when we come to highlighting that and we drill down. Number 9, be proactive, think of your customer. And I touch on that lightly in this under promise and over deliver concept. And so I'll leave it at that. And perhaps at some other stage, we might look at doing the 5 that I've missed, because we just physically don't have time in the time frame available to drill down on the whole lot of. You could literally spend a whole day on this subject. And above all, listen and act. This will probably get a little wry smile out of Melissa, but blokes generally don't listen, as I'm told by my wife of 48 years, so I must be listening a fair bit to last that long. But in the busy rush of what we do every day, it's very hard to concentrate on 25 things at a time. So when you're listening to customers, it becomes critically important that you don't just listen, but you actually understand. And there's been a slight change in a lot of legal terms that I have a particularly affinity to. And in the past, you used to just sign a document and it'd say signed, and you sign it. But there's a number of judgments that have happened in Australia recently where the case has been put, well, I just signed it because every document's the same, I signed them all. Whereas, and that's quite common, how often do you click a button on the bottom of your contract with Google or Facebook or whatever, and you basically signed away your photos, your life, and everything that you once stood private for. So the change in that legislation, or the change in the word, is no longer sign. It's when people get you to sign something, you'll see it pop up more and more in documents, is I have read, I understand, and I agree to sign. So when you look at the legal ramifications on that, you want to be listening carefully in the first place. So that's my top 10, but I highlight every business is different. The soul of the business is the creative professional who's running it. So you want to look more at how you fit into your own questions, because mine is obviously tainted towards the size of the business that we ran and the directions that we took. So I would encourage you to create your own. So let's look at the 5 that I want to do more with. And these, I'll run through these real quickly because I'll drill down on them more. So the 5 we're going to cover, if you want to, I've left a U out of, the true sign writer in me has come out. I've left a U out of out of value. So increasing your value to your client's perception, we're going to drill down. Respect and understanding of the business's intrinsic value. Never stop finding opportunities, and investing in growth and sustainability, and under promise and over delivery. So as I mentioned, we could spend a full day, but what this is all really about is thinking differently. We become, there's a theory called Pavlov's dog theory, and Pavlov was a guy in the age of the Renaissance period in Italy who watched and observed a dog in a cage where he rang a bell and fed the dog a piece of meat. And in the end, he could ring the bell, and the dog would come to the front of the cage ready to eat. And I hate to make that comparison about all of us humans, but that's what we do every day. We turn up for work, we're conditioned to do certain things, and we do those certain things whether we like them or not. And I'm saying break the mold. I'm saying go to work in a different direction. I noticed I had a habit of driving to the factory one way, and I would always drive a different way home. So there's all those little quirky human things that we do. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm saying if you're looking at growing your business and adding value to it, if you're doing the same thing that you did 5 years ago or a year ago, in the world of COVID that we are now, you've really got to look and think differently about what you're doing. So let's start for real this time. So the light bulb moment is what we're after. So when you have that special little click, if you don't call it a light bulb moment, turn a light bulb on when you get into your office or into your workshop that reminds you to think differently about everything you do. Do things in a different way. So the first one that I want to drill down on, that's just basically in anything, fun has got to be a part of it, in my view. I mentioned the survey the other day, and I had a really interesting comment that came out of the survey. And it doesn't matter who said it, but somebody said it, and they said that the E in employee doesn't stand for employee, it stands for enemy. And I am so repulsed by that. I feel like ringing the person and making him listen to that first seminar we did on the value of people. And I know everybody doesn't agree with me, but if you're going to work, it's not, in that case, it's not so much about your enemy or your employee. It's the fact that you're allowing that to exist. And if you want to live your life that way, I'm telling you, if you're not having fun, your glass is upside down. So if you want to jump in and ask Steve a question, or me direct, or you want to ask me a question later on, I'll be very happy to answer it. It's all a part of the gig as far as I'm concerned. If it's of a personal nature, I'll do my best to cover it. So number one topic is increasing the value. How do we do it? Listen to your needs. This can be implemented as a simple order book or online ordering. Ordering from sign makers, if you want to test it out, ring a sign maker in Australia or ring a sign maker anywhere and try and order. The first trick is, will they pick up the phone with a smile in their voice? And the answer to that is probably no. So what I'm suggesting to you is that tricks that we've done is looked at doing needs analysis for people. So if you want to increase how they see your value, is we'd go to a customer and say, well, look, you've been ordering a few signs off us here and there, but we want to look at you in your business more detailed. And we'd come back to them with a list of signs that they ordered off us, how long they were ordering, and how we could improve the business. And more importantly, making it easier for them to order off us. And I'm not trying to be capitalist or whatever, but the thrill of walking in the morning, this is back in the days of fax machines, and seeing a $10,000 or $20,000 order sitting in your fax machine where there has been virtually no cost of sale, is a significant high in that person. It certainly makes you smile all day. And it connects you to the customer, because then they want, oh, can you send one of those order books out to our such and such depot? So nowadays you wouldn't do it with an order book because faxes have gone the way of the dodo. But online ordering is so simple to implement. And we've done a lot of professional websites for customers where when their customers dial into the website, they click on their logo and they go to a special part of the sign maker's website, which has their standard signs that they order off them all the time. That isn't expensive to do. It's quite simple. You can get your local web developer to do it. You don't even have to put prices on it if you don't want to do that, if it's a straight order agreement, and you can have a long time negotiated agreement in place with a price list every year. So that's one tip. The second one is have some fun and make people laugh. When we had the consultants in, they were saying we should fulfill our orders in a different manner. And it's easy to say that, but it's a bit harder to really think about how you're going to do it. So we came up with a simple trick of buying some candy or jelly beans we used in the company colours in a little clear cellophane bag. Foil stamped on the front was the company logo and thank you for your order. On the back was the 1-800 number, free call. And we didn't realise that they were of any great value. And I suppose we'd given out a couple of thousand of them in the year. Every order that went out, we just got the storeman to throw a couple of these bags of lollies in it. And the idea was, like a lot of things at our place, we had a box of 1,000 and behind that was another box of 1,000. Something went wrong, as things do, and we ran out. And for the next 2 weeks, we were slammed with people saying, "What, don't you love us anymore? Where's my lollies? You know, I always run to pick up your boxes off the back of the truck first because I love the lollies." So we recorded everybody that made a complaint and sent them a box of Rose's chocolates that were about $8 or $10 plus the courier fees. But that engagement, everybody made such a great joke out of it. It was such a fantastic thing. The morale in the organisation soared because everybody realised that their work was enjoyed, and it was for a 23-cent pack of candies. So that may not be your go. That may not be the way you want to do things. It could be send it out with your invoice. I'm just saying you need tools to be able to engage with people. Creating value by building allied services. The day you think about what's really needed for your customers is the day your business really wakes up. And think of things like, if they're ordering regular signs off you, we used to do, I owned a couple of patents that we developed for aluminium signposting systems. So we set up arrangements in place where we would keep blanks ready in their stock sizes so we could offer 1-day turnaround. And for an aluminium architectural sign, that sounds like it was a phenomenal order, but they were kits. We just made the kits to the size that was in their manual, which we designed for them and got paid for it. So all we had to do was cut out some vinyl letters and stick them onto the sign panels. So and then we started off with things like, you know, the stock signs that were prepaid. So they'd order 10 of them, we'd store them for them. When they wanted one, we just pull them out and personalise them. You can offer them things like storage facilities. I've got a customer I'm going to later today, actually, that's got about 2,000 square metres of space in storage leased to clients. So if you think about the volume of work that they must do to generate that amount of product that they store, it's quite phenomenal. But it's a part of maintaining the value of the business with the client. Other things like not just ordinary delivery, but personalised delivery, or even maintenance on signs are some of the things that you can increase how customers see your business. Next one. And in that, in making the people see your business as a different part of it, you want to be, in my belief, you've got to become a logistics partner, not just a sign maker. And I'm not saying that a sign maker or a digital printer or sign people in general are just anything, but I'm trying to get the fact that you should be your sign maker logistics partner with the company, where we switch the focus from most creative people love to make stuff. They're not that good at managing stuff. And I need you to switch your way of thinking if you want to adopt this value set, that you're thinking on behalf of the client. Which brings me to being viewed as an essential service. Once you understand them, the process immediately becomes us. In other words, not just them and you. And that's a terrific position to be in, because all of a sudden the respect rises, timeframes rise, people think differently. And so by adding value and building understanding, you're the expert. So if you're the expert, you should act like it. And I don't mean in a pompous or, overbearing way. I'm just making sure that it's even the friendly side of things. Like, for example, a little habit we adopted from one of the ways we grew was by acquisition, and we bought about 5 or 6 other sign companies out in the 30 years that we're in business. And I talk about that in a later slide, I believe. But when you do a quote, there's the Google and YouTube and also Facebook is full of comments and, oh, do you charge for quotes? Well, I don't know how you get away with that, but effectively you charge for it in the price that you quote is the simple answer to it. However, if you've spent 1 or 2 hours, or in some cases, some of the larger quotes that we would do, we could invest days into a quote. But we often send the quote off thinking the job is done. No, the job's done when you've actually got the order. So we would always make a pattern of ringing up. We'd store our quotes in a weekly format, and we'd ring the clients up and say, hey, just checking you've got that quote that we sent you yesterday. Is there anything we can help you? You don't have to necessarily ask for the order, but you'll be astounded how you can add value to your own business by simply making that follow-up call to ask them if they've got it. And you'll see the percentage of times where they say, oh, I'm glad you rang, here's the order number. So all of those sort of things will definitely build value into your business by your client looking at you differently. Otherwise, they'll turn into a veil where they you'll be mourning their loss. Respect and understanding of your own business and its intrinsic value. And by that, I mean, in the rush, busy life that you have, often you don't get time to think. And I'm saying make time to think, make time to grab a coffee or a glass of water, go and sit by the beach or throw in a fishing line or whatever, but start to think differently about your business. Take some notes. And if you've got a team, and that could be, you putting your other hat on or your significant other, a lot of businesses are made up of partners, a husband and wife in many cases, or 2 partners, where you should be talking to each other and you should be engaging in not thinking inwardly only about the business. This is really one of my favourites, and I referred to it earlier about act like your job description. If you accept you're the business owner, and you're technically, in essence, a general or managing director. And if you look, this is where I mention Google, and ask me, I'll send you a job description on a general manager and a managing director if you want them. But ask Google for the description, and then become responsible for either of those roles that you take, or in many cases, many of the roles that you take, and act like you're in charge. And that, you create rules and guidelines is probably a better word, or systems that support the people. The old way of thinking used to be they used to put people last. So it was process, systems, people, whereas I'm a believer in putting people first, then processes that build systems that support the people. So it becomes a looped version of what you're doing. The last one of these, and it's really coming out in no uncertain terms about the way people are often down on themselves. And as humans, we do have a tendency to self-persecute. And so I'm saying treat yourself seriously and treat your business as a business and not your personal fiefdom. And by that, I mean, sure, you're the king of the castle, but have some fun doing it. So treat yourself seriously, that if you're an employee of the company, and even though you're the general manager, you should take time commensurate with the effort you put in. My lovely wife said to me many, many years ago when our kids were first born, and like many of you out there, I was probably working 60 hours a week at the time, involved, engrossed, overwhelmed by the growth of the business. And she said, if you work 60 hours a week, why don't you take an extra 2 weeks a year holiday? And it was one of those light bulb moments, those thinking differently moments where I started to. And my best year ever was the year before I sold the company, was 1999. I had 2 weeks skiing in the beautiful South Island. I had 7 weeks skiing in Europe. And that year I had a total of 13 weeks away from the business, not involved in the business, other than just a weekly report or sitting on a weekly meeting, even remotely. And then back in those days, we just used to do it by telephone or faxes and that sort of stuff. So treat yourself like your job description, treat yourself like your organisational chart. So to me, this is a really important understanding of respect and understanding they really build values into it. Thank you. Okay, never stop finding opportunities. acknowledging and knowing that the industry is based on smaller numbers of employees, like a good chunk of the industry are small home-based businesses or small workshop-based businesses. So it doesn't really matter whether it's, and they often think that they're sole traders, whereas in reality, they're responsible for the employment of a whole lot of other people in society. They keep the suppliers going, they keep their contractors going, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just as important to respect yourself as one person, or if you've got 10 or if you've got 100. In my case, we found the sweet spot was mid-20s, 25 to 30 people worked really easy for us. We went over 30 and all of a sudden the dynamics changed. So the sweet spot that you have is your own water level. And I'm not trying to say you should have a bigger or smaller water level. I'm just saying you should own it when you do it. And I mean by growing, I mean growing not just the size of the business, if that's what you want to do, but always growing intelligence-wise, intellectually wise, and growing process-wise. Otherwise, if you're standing still, you're not standing still, you're definitely going backwards. So some of the opportunities you could find, you've probably all heard the swamp scenario, that there's been many little postcards written and jokes around about the object that was to, if you're up to your arse in alligators, the object, you've forgotten that the object was to actually drain the swamp. And I'm suggesting to you, if you are struggling in those areas, and especially with the mental health issues that are coming to the fore all around the world with this loneliness phenomena of COVID, it's the loneliest place in the world. People tend to ostracize themselves when they're working for themselves. So you might find, and this is where the NZSDA can help you, or any association can help you, you may be able to find someone, and even if it isn't a permanent arrangement, but you might find a merger with a kindred spirit in some of the areas. And it may offer you growth and profits, because if you're a one-person band, sometimes they're not 40 hours a week or 60 hours like I quoted, but I know of, still to this day, people are working out there 80 hours a week, and their payment will come due, and that payment is usually their relationship with their friends, their wife, their partners, and significant others in their life. So not everybody can manage and work with other people. I've had a good career working in strategic arrangements with people, and I've had a number of businesses where I was in partnership with people, and largely they all worked out very, very successfully. Equally, I learned just as much off the one that I wasn't happy with, that we weren't making any money out of. But the lesson I learned was to never go into that space again. Acquisition, I mentioned earlier, that was one of the ways that we grew businesses, because most people don't understand the real value of their lifetime's work. When you look at the average, again, this is something that's come out of the survey that we've just done. It's not finished yet. We're still collecting data on it, but without question, the amount of people, we've got an aging industry. The technology is revolutionary, and it's bringing a whole new influx of different people into the industry, like it or not. And I'm traditionally trained, for those who don't know, but to me it doesn't, and I could be persecuted for this, and I'm happy to be, but I see no difference in making a sign with a concrete truck or a brush or a router or a digital printer. To me, it's all about making the sign, because I take the role of someone who, as I've said in the previous webinars, is someone who takes someone's brand and makes it and creates something for them to prosper their business. So it's not so much just that, it should be made by brush, or it should be made by this. Make it any way you want it, make it any way you like to do it, and continue to do that. But to me, an acquisition is a valuable opportunity that you can take on and grow your business exponentially much faster than you can do in a normal manner, if that's what your aim is. In never finding opportunities, I can't miss not quoting two Picasso quotes. And one of his favourites, and one of my favourites, is also his shortest one, which is, "I don't seek, I find." So if you like that one, write yourself a little sign, because it's just such a great quote in its clarity and simpleness. And if you look at any of the Facebook pages, everybody's still whinging about pricing and quoting. So the example that I often speak, if you've seen me speak at conferences, you'll know that I usually finish in my conferences in this, so it's within reason to do it here. The story goes, there's an American lady in the early 60s goes to Verona, which is a beautiful little town where Romeo and Juliet happened. And he's sitting out in the piazza, and a lady walks up and asks Picasso, "Can you sketch me?" And he said, "Of course, madam." And he said, "That's how I make my living. Sit down." So he picks up his notepad, his sketch pad, he sketches it out. He flips the drawing around in 1 or 2 minutes, shows it to the lady and says, "What do you think of that?" And she said, "That's amazing. You've captured my very essence, my soul. Can I offer you money for it?" He said, "Of course. Well, that's how I make my living. So I'm happy to sell it to you." She said, "How much?" And he said, $10,000. And she said, "But it's only taking you a few minutes." And he said very quietly and very calmly, "No, madam, it's taken me my whole life." So if you think about the amount of effort, hours, knowledge, signs that you've made, quotes that you've done, this is your life. And that brings me to the last one about never stop finding opportunities. Stop listening to what other people price, how they price. I know you guys have got a pricing guide, which is a good start, but the first comment you'll get back from any pricing guide, and I remember as a young kid joining the industry, the Sign Association in Australia had a pricing guide. Would you believe it was designed to fit in the top pocket of a bib and brace overalls? So you'd slide it into your top pocket, which I find that quite humorous now. But it's a classic trait that, you know, to present correctly and present yourself as a value opportunity, you have to be shown and seen like that. So the only person who really knows the real price and understands the worth of it is you. You know, people are whining about low prices 25 years ago and they're still whining. And I'll put to you one case. If you go out and sell a safety sign on price, let's call it $30, right? For a simple danger keep out. Danger signs denote tragic results. Like danger means you can be killed. That's what internationally what danger means. So if you sell that safety sign for $30, you're selling it for what it costs to make plus a margin. Whereas if you were buying that safety sign and that sign could save one of your family's life, one of your friends' life, or one of your employees' life, do you think that that's good value at $30? You'd probably be happy to pay $60 for it. So if you get the concept, what I'm saying there, and I'm not trying to sell emotion or sell a push, but I'm saying that the sign is only worth what you're prepared to pay for it if your education is such. And the lesson you should learn from it, if people are only prepared to pay X dollars for something, you might be dealing with the wrong customers. And that's the lesson we learned out of spending, back at the time it was about $22,000 to get consultants in. And we literally, in fact, one of the articles I wrote in, I think it was last year or the year before, it talks about cutting 25% off your bottom line customers. If you want that, I can forward that to Melissa and she could pass it on. And it's brutal, but the net result of us printing out a MYOB, who our top customers were, we looked at the bottom 20%, we put a red line across the bottom of the page, and when they rang back the next time, we simply said to them, "Sorry, we can't do that job for 6 to 8 weeks." And we said, "But you can ring Joe Bloggs signs or someone else signs or whatever." And we just politely got rid of them. And our net profit increased 4-fold. Because instead of running around doing a whole lot of small work, we started to do larger jobs. And each year for about 3 or 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ahead, we did the same trick. So it's worthwhile thinking differently. Next one. Investing in growth and sustainability. I mentioned before that if you're not growing, you're potentially standing still. It's a commercial position. So if you can just play a little game with me and put your right and left hand and just imagine that you're a set of scales. And in one hand, you've got the letters Y, and in the other hand, you've got ROI, return on investment. And any decision you make about why you should buy that new truck or why you should buy that new digital printer or why you should buy that chalk line or whatever you're going to buy must have an impact one way or the other. And the simple lesson, I believe, or the trick, is balancing the two. And it's as simple as making sure there are more positives than negatives. It is that simple. So if you're going to buy, you know, the latest U-Butte $50,000, $60,000 Amarok, and you can justify it because you're going to get a return on investment, or you think the value with a wrap on that's going to add value to your business, yeah, go ahead and buy it. But keep a track on it, see what it's really adding to your business. The the second one in this growth and sustainability is what your business is worth. The typical sign maker doesn't think sale value until it's too late. When Julie and I decided to sell our business, it was 1995, and I made some classic blunders. We all in the industry whinge about people who enter our industry or that aren't professionals in our industry. And as I said, I bought 6 other sign companies off other guys directly from them. They'd rang me and they were fed up, or for whatever reason, doesn't matter about the reasons. But I bought these businesses, and I was astounded how cheaply I could buy really good quality businesses. And they'd had customers for 15 or 20 years. And when we had them for another 10 or 15 years, I was astounded how sticky the customers were. You know, we were obviously doing something right. But if we don't look at why we're going to sell and how we're going to sell, and we decided that a 30-year career in the industry is a long time, and would I be able to compete with the thought processes, or did I just want to do something differently? And with the advent of the patents and things we had, we started to look at things a little bit differently, and I decided I wanted to try a different career. So we started to treat our business quite differently again and look at it like it was a third-party business, and we were managing it the correct way, and it should pay. Over a 3-year period, we doubled our wages because the value of the business was increasing, and even though I was working different hours, a lot less, we started to see that we were paying people more to work for us because we're adding value by having them as a part of our team. But if you look at your business like a garden, if you plant a beautiful garden and never water it, unless you're in an amazing place where you don't need to water it, it's not going to look after itself. You know, I know people go away from a week and then spend 2 weeks mopping up the mess that they blame their employees for not doing it the way they should have. Well, my first question to them is, do you have systems and procedures and operational instructional sheets and all that? And they say no. And I said, well, what are they doing? You're probably the center of the wheel. They need you to make every decision. So if you're looking at ever selling your business, you should start investing on its growth and sustainability so someone else can buy it. Because many people don't realise that at the end of the day, the formula for selling your business is its net profit, which you generally deliberately downplay. Like when you buy the new boardroom table, it's actually the new dining room table for home and your boardroom table. That's fine if you never sell your business, right? And I've got no problems with that. You might have some issues if the taxation department find out about it, but that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is the value of your business, whether you sell it. And most brokers will tell you the same thing. It'll be valued on the net profit plus the add backs. So your wages, your car, your telephone, your wife's petrol in the car, all of those sort of things. So, and the other little lurks and perks that you get. So in selling your business, you should make sure that you minimise that to add net profit back onto the business, because that's where you're going to get a multiple, maybe 1 or 2. If you're a doctor's surgery, you might get a multiple of 7, but in this business, typically it's a 1 or 2 times multiple. So, and that's going to be the virtual sale value. So what you really need to learn is stop chasing turnover. I've turned over $10 million a year, big deal. A lesson I learned from one of my brothers, actually. He, back in the very, very early days, I was only turning over about 250 or 300,000. It was just me and one other guy. This was early 70s. He was doing $2 million a year turnover at the time, and we were making more net profit. And I scratched my head talking to Richard. I said, like, what are you doing it for? But that's, people see it. Turnover is the goal. It's not the goal, it's net. And the more, and I'm not saying you can achieve that net by ripping people off. You know, we've always traded very honestly, and I encourage people to trade honestly because it also adds value to your business. The last group. Oh, sorry, we've got a couple more here. It's so simple to impress. The simple act of adding, like how do you impress a client? Give them something for free. And if you look at the square meterage, usually on most print jobs, you'll find there's a small strip, or even if you print a little bit of extra space and print some smaller versions of some stickers that they want, or larger versions, or even drop some COVID signs or something else. So when the client gets them, pack them separately, put them in the goods. So when the client sees it, the running time of the machine will be minimal. In fact, if it's a piece of waste, most digital printers print from the full width of the material anyway. But those sort of little touches that allow you to literally reach out and touch the customer in their own environment. And they could be little, we used to give away a pack. We had a couple of standard series signs. One was called G1000s, and they were all those wash your hands. They were please close the door, all of those sort of things. And any new customer that moved into new premises, we used to give them a kit of little stickers that they could put around their building. They weren't branded with our name because to me you can do that if you choose to, but in our position, we kept them as standard signs. And inevitably, you'd turn around and you get more orders from them because they said, oh, those little stickers that you sent us are a great idea. Can we buy some more of those? And you can say, well, you can either give us another order and we'll run another order for you, or we can give you a quote for 1,000 of them or whatever you want to do. But that's the sort of reaching out and touching them where you under-promise and deliver something that they don't expect. And if you really want to surprise yourself and change the way that the dynamics in it, the question that I ask at just about every seminar, and I can't ask for a show of hands, but maybe you could respond back to Steve. The question that I ask all the time is how many people in the industry spend more than 1% of their annual turnover on marketing? And that marketing includes your shop front, your motor vehicles, your uniforms, Facebook marketing, YouTube marketing, added value brochures or even local radio stations, whatever marketing method you had. Another thing that came out of our survey that has blown me out of the water is that significant, I think it's like 70 or 80%. I forwarded it on to Melissa. She'd know the number. I haven't got access to it speaking now, but the vast majority of the participants in the survey are using social media to get new business. So if you're not present on social media, you want to rethink the next 10 years of your life because you might be spending a lot more time fishing. I'd like you to be spending that lot more time fishing at your choice on your boat rather than just fishing off the land and to get a feed. And you can do it properly if you market your business. So rarely in the industry do we see people really treating their own brand as a significant brand. I've seen car parks in sign shops with 3 different lots of signage on it. You'd think they're 3 different sign companies. People with different uniforms. Their quote looks different to their invoice. And most of all, don't be a secret. You want to really get out there and scream it from the rooftops to make sure that your business is well recognised by all. So next slide, please, Karen. So there's several articles, and because we don't get a lot of feedback on the way that we present that, that's my fault because I don't want people to feel obliged that they should give us feedback. I wanted to pick 2 that really, 2 articles. I could probably have given you 8 or 9 articles on it, but if I get some feedback, I've got other ones, like I mentioned, that I could have added into it. But stay or go, is it time to sell your business? I'm not trying to flog you that article because I want you to sell your business. In fact, in the survey, it came out that people are aware of that. It was a good understanding for me to have the position that a lot of people are happy in business and they're planning to stay more than 10 years. But the point of this adding value is that if you add value to your business so you can sell it, you treat your business differently and you become more engaged in the business because you actually have a job description and your staff have job descriptions and you have an organisational chart. So if you ever have to sell it or bring in a partner or let someone else run it for you and you sit back, I'm seeing an occurrence where more and more sign companies have got processes in place where they actually still are a major shareholder in their own business while they step back and let other highly competent, skilled people run the business, because not everybody wants to run a business in reality. Many people, in fact, it's something like 3 to 5% of the population that actually own and run businesses. And that's a pretty well universal figure in most Western countries. But a lot of people are very happy to come and really work hard and love doing what they're doing because they don't want the responsibility of what people would term as sleepless nights. I'm saying don't have the sleepless nights, just run your business in a better manner. And so the second of the 2 articles is a fairly recent article. I think it was only a couple of months ago in the issue, and it's called Think Differently. which is the premise of what we're talking about. If you think differently about your business, and keep that why and ROI always conscious in your mind, it'll be fairly easy to understand that you can add value to your business without spending a lot of money. We've probably, not all of us have got a great influx of time available, but I'm seeing a real switch. And although we've had this incredible convergence of technologies, we're also seeing a lot of the regional and country shops, particularly in Australia, which has been not massively hurt by COVID. We've certainly had some detrimental effects, but yeah, I'm seeing shops in the country that are, growing significantly during this time because they're supplying. They're looking further in their supply chain. So I hope those 2 articles are worthwhile. Get back to me or get back to Melissa and give you your feedback on them. And if you want, I can ship some others. Most of these articles are still online, part of what we do. And this is a good example of adding value, is on all the Visual Connections websites, even the exhibitions. We build to add value to their business and the people who exhibit at the areas. All of the previous trade shows since about 2015 have an interactive map, so you can go online and have a look at the trade show from 4 or 5 years ago, and actually see 5 photos of each of the stands in a floor plan format where you click on the stand and it shows you the 5 photos of it. That's a good example of adding value. The same with the magazine. You can go back and look at published magazines for probably 10 years and see all of the articles and all the magazines in an electronic format. Again, it's another value as an advertiser in the magazine. If you know that your content and the way that the thing works, it actually increases their yield from an SEO point of view significantly, because the product that we use actually allows Google to read the words of the articles. They're all PDF versions, which Google can read, rather than have them as a photo, which Google can't read. So I think that's about it. Just flick to the next slide if you can, Karen. Yeah, so if there's any questions, we could handle them now, or we're pretty well done. I think you can see what I mean. What's the time frame that we're on? I don't want to run. Yeah, so we're pretty well on 46 minutes, which is pretty well we need to be.
Spot on.
Yep. So if there's any questions, I'm pretty well known for being able to talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles. So I've probably covered a lot of things, but if you think about it, I'm a sign guy, born and bred. So if you've got a question, you can shoot it through Melissa and I'll answer it for you, or
No, and look, and we'll reach out to the participants of the last 3 episodes as well, because I've really enjoyed the stuff that you've been covering, John, and it's quite broad, right? I mean, that's the whole, you're covering a lot of different businesses, and I think I reckon there'll be a huge opportunity for us to kind of drill down to maybe a few more targeted areas in these slides, and especially like you said, you could do a day on value and getting a bit more, having people to be able to interact a bit more and things like that. But Clinton's asked a question: in your opinion, is sponsorship worth the hassle?
I've never been a real fan of it. From an emotional point, and I assume, Clint, that we're talking about sponsorship of the local sporting organisation or race cars or that sort of work.
Yeah.
Yep. Is that where? Yep. If you look at it from the survey point of view, and we're up to about 110 people who have filled in the survey, one of them's come back with sponsorship, and it's only rated as a 1%er. Whereas if you look at that social media aspect, I think it's like 40 or 50% of people, or maybe more, engage in social media to gain new business. And that's, I think, the intent of where the question is. I'm not a real believer in it, because I don't think it's really seen as sponsorship in the true sense of the word. And if you are going to go that way, it's sort of more a donation. So the sponsorship of a race car, I believe, is all you get is more race cars that people want free signs for. So that's, to me, that's not my space. However,
if you don't mind, I think there's definitely an area for it, but it's got to be in the same ballpark as where you want to position your business, right? Like, so what's with Clinton's, their company and their brand, it's like whatever you're sponsoring needs to supplement that nicely. There's no point in putting your logo on a bag of bread, or like you see on the rugby fields now, the most random brands popping up on the pitch and things, which just have nothing
Yeah.
to do with the sport, which I know it's all visibility, but for I've just from where we've worked, at Computer Leader, I've seen a couple of companies do it very well. We've got a company up north that have sponsored some drift cars, things like that, but it's really helped their presence in their local market, and
Yes.
they've seen some value, so they've kept doing it, and so really I think it's a case by case, and it's but only he would know, right?
Yeah.
He would know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Steve. I think you've answered the question a lot better than me. And like the ones you're referring to, I got a great tip many, many years ago out of the Signcraft magazine out of the US. Tom McEltrott and his brothers own it out of Fort Myers in Florida. And they wrote an article that never do anything for nothing was sort of the content of the article. But what it spoke about, and at my daughter's school and my son's school, I love the way that the process at Sarah's school is they had it was a independent school, and it was they bought a pub next door because all the Year 12 girls used to go there and have their end of Year 12 drinks there. So they bought it and turned it into an art gallery and an area where the young women could experience the trades that weren't normally promoted to women. So they set up a full workshop. They could learn to weld, they could learn to fabricate, they could learn to do their art there. And all of the rooms of the old pub were converted to little mini studios that, say, 4 girls would share a studio for the year 10 and 12 major projects. And so I thought that they were doing such a splendid job at the education of the young women. I used to always donate the signs, right? But the process went, and I said to the purser at the time, send me the information you want. I'll come out, measure it up. I will quote it formally. And then they gave me the job because I was a parent. But when I sent the bill, I put on it, please treat as donation. And so the value of those signs added up to be significant. We've lost the thing, have we? Or...
No, we just want to put you front and centre.
Oh, good. Okay. The value of the things added up significantly to a point that when they created the foundation, I was asked to be on the foundation. I said, look, what I know about educating young women is nothing. I'd rather someone else with the right qualifications take it. But I appreciate the fact that you've done it. And then they told me that they'd be recording all these donations to the school trust, and the value was X amount of dollars. And the reason why Tom's article was so poignant to me is I've never been a Boy Scout, but I see that they form an intrinsic part of our community. And this is a part of sponsorship, I would say, is that if the Boy Scouts or the Girl Guides or some group of people who are giving up their own time for the betterment of society, I would always do their signs for free. They'd come in, I'd give them a quote, and I would just write across the quote by hand from a professional point of view. This is a quote of what a normal sign would cost, but considering the worth you have in our community, I'd like to offer this sign as a donation. That way I could do the sign that I wanted to do, a highly professional, good quality sign, whereas typically they're looking at the reverse of the Warren Buffett quote. They're looking at how cheap they can get it. Whereas if I'm going to sponsor something, I want it to be sponsored and show our worth to the society. So the value, it's like, you could say that I'm sponsoring this with my own time, and I sponsored the survey, and I do it because there could be, and I'll take that risk because I think I've done particularly well over the industry. Like a lot of people my age who've been in the industry for a long period of time, I think it's really good to give back. There's as much good feeling in the way the sponsorship is received. So it's not always the why and the ROI in the two hands. But the why is maybe because you want to do it, and the ROI, your decision might be you don't care about the ROI. So I don't expect that I would get a lot of customer work in New Zealand because the cost to get me there is, $1,000 before you even start, really. But it's one of those things that if you're adding value to the whole society of sign people, and that's how I've earned my living, there's a really feel good value in it for me, regardless. If I can share and improve someone's life just a little bit, it helps me. So in saying that, we should acknowledge and thank Melissa because it was her idea to run these webinars in the first place. So thank you for doing that. And it's a bit of a quid pro quo in the sense that I wasn't able to attend the conference didn't go ahead, so I didn't make it. But I hope I've added value by helping out with these. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope the audience has too. So,
absolutely. And and Clint, just to summarise what you put there, mate, that he uses this as a strategy to meet and effectively network with other sponsorship businesses and that there too. So I think what you're doing is absolutely the right way, and I'm just speaking from experience that obviously for us that we supply signage materials, so it makes sense to be part and support and sponsor the NZSDA, which means I get to go along to a great event, usually every year, and get to network with other sign and display shops. So that's how it works. So I think you're doing. I think go with your gut, mate, and you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, but know that there are options, and as long as at the end of the day, if you're comfortable with it and you feel that there is a Y and ROI, I'm totally good with it. I just learned that in the early days, you do a race car for someone, and next thing you know, you've got 10 people who want the race cars done for nothing. I'm thinking, well, what's the point of this? So,
Right. Well,
okay.
I think if we've got no more questions, obviously everyone's feel free to email anything through to myself or John and Melissa if you like anything passed on, and I think we'll follow up with some different ideas for some new webinars in the future. But look, I just want to thank you again, John. Like, it's been a great. It's been probably a couple of months, right? This has been across, and it's something that I've been genuinely looking forward to doing with you each time, and really, it's been awesome to see the things that you've covered off, and I know that the customers would have got a lot out of it. At least one thing. I can't imagine anyone didn't come across out of each of these episodes without pulling something out of it. So, and thanks for Melissa for basically sorting this all out and organising it all.
Absolutely.
You guys have been amazing. So, and to the customers, thanks for joining. So,
thank you, my Anzac buddies.
Yeah. So everyone take care and have an awesome week. And so I'll put some signs up, and we'll
go make some money.
Go make some money and have some fun. That's it. Okay. All right, team. Thank you very much.